Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here, and we have the 8 weapon comparison for Taser slash ECCOM ready for you in this video. Now previously I've covered the same 8 weapons being compared in Vape. Now we're going to do this for the Tasercom slash ECCOM. If you want to know how my Tasercom is like in terms of energy requirements, in terms of rotation, in terms of con setup, in terms of all the different details, please check out the Taser Math guide that I've done previously. I'll put it in the in-video link on the top right corner here. It will be in the description as well. Right. So without further ado, let's go into the figures. Now, I'm not going to go through every single figure, obviously. And I will leave some time at the end of the video to allow you guys to pause and look at the different figures. But for now, for me, what I just want to quickly highlight here is on how to read this table. In case this is the first time you are seeing this, if you have ever seen any of my weapon comparison videos, you know how it works. But nevertheless, whether you are new or you need a refresher, basically how I read this is that this is Aqua versus Skyward Hub. So Aqua versus Skyward Hub, how I read this is that if this is saying that Aqua is 27.3% better than Skyward Hub. Likewise, when you have Elegy for the End here and Aqua versus and Skyward Hub versus, this simply means Aqua. This column here simply means Aqua's performance versus Elegy. This is Skyward Hub's versus Elegy. And you have set bow here, Sacrificial bow, and you'll see that there are now cells that are highlighted in pink. What it means when the cells are highlighted in pink is very straightforward. It simply means that the weapon here, in this case Elegy R1, is 16.5% worse than Sacrificial bow. For the case of Skyward Hub R1, it's only 6.1% worse than Sacrificial bow, which tallies, right? Look at the figures here. Okay, but starting from C1, you'll see that Skyward Hub is better than Sacrificial bow, and thus this is the percentage figures that you see here is 7.8% better. So I hope this is pretty straightforward for you guys. Obviously, the more weapons we have, the more columns we'll have, but not to worry, I'll show those later. So now let's go into what else will be covered in this video. Basically, important notes, Taser slash EC 5-star weapons, quick note Elegy, Sacrificial versus Aqua versus Favonius, Stringless, Fading Twilight and Slingshot, i.e. the full F2P options. We'll go do a conclusion with the weapon rankings and Yelan video series. So first off, on the important notes, please note that this weapon comparison applies to Taser only. Weapon comparison for other comps will be done separately, just like how we have done Vape separately. ER values matches whatever has been covered in previous math guides, i.e. minimum 140 ER at C0. You can go 150 ER if you really want to play safe, but 140 should be sufficient. 100 ER at C1 plus, okay, i.e. you don't need any bonus ER. Weapons with ER subset will have the minimum ER between weapon ER and required ER. So example, Sacrificial will always be 130.6 ER because Sacrificial, remember, it has an additional E, which means that it's equivalent to C1 plus. So even though 100 ER is enough, you will always be 130.6 because the weapon has 30.6 ER. And then Fading Twilight is 140 ER at C0 because it doesn't have an additional E. So it follows the 140 ER at C0 here. But at C1 plus, instead of 100 ER, it's 130.6 because again, the weapon gives you 30.6. You can't go lower than that. Okay. 2 HOD, 2 T tenacity. So these 2 Heart of Death and 2 tenacity of the milliliter figures used throughout. We've already established previously in the Taser Math guide that this is the best artifact build for Tasercom. Well, 4 Thunder Silver will give you more damage, but I don't recommend 4 Thunder Silver on a Heizou character. 4 Thunder Silver is still better used on an Electro character. If you want more details on that, check out the Taser Math guide. Alright. R1 of 5-star weapons will be compared against both R1 and R5 of 3 and 4-star weapons. Makes sense, right? The above figures are Yelan's only, so Impel of Elegy's buff is not reflected in the figures, the team DPS figures like all the other team members. But I'll address this in the Elegy section below here. But to be honest, since this is ECCOM, not VapeCom, the EM buff doesn't have that much of an impact per se. I'm not saying that EC damage is bad. I'm saying that the low EM has a bigger impact on amplifying reactions like Vape and Melt as opposed to EC. Okay. Unlike VV Vape where EM is useless on Yelan, since Yelan may proc some EC reactions in Taser, I have added the EC reaction damage and DPS. In other words, the figures that you see here for Aqua is going to be slightly different from the original Taser Math guide. This is going to be higher because we have added the EC reaction DPS. But it is a very conservative approach that I have done for the EC, where we assume that only 25% of the EC props are triggered by each character, applying the EC related elements. So for Yelan, only 25% of the EC props are being done by her. That's how we are doing the math. Okay, because the way EC works, you cannot reliably guarantee who will prot the EC. As simple as that. I have also tweaked to add flat HP base roll when ER is not required. So generally speaking would be C1 plus and C0 for the weapons with ER subset. Okay, so it's let's just say that the artifacts are further optimized in terms of the base stats, which is why the figures will be higher than what you see in the original Taser Math guide. But it's not significantly higher, it's only slightly higher, because after all, like I said, you don't get too much of EC damage, and flat HP, while helpful, impairs not as big as HP percentage, yeah? Especially for a high base HP character like Yelan. Okay, next, let's talk about Taser / EC 5-star weapons, which will be these 3 weapons here. Okay. Essentially, at all constellations, Aqua is significantly better than Skyward Heart Elegy, which is very obvious, right? There's no pink cells here. In fact, the difference between the VV Vape is that now Elegy is performing even worse compared to Skyward Heart. Because Skyward Heart is only 1 to 1.5 tiers, typical tier different behind Aqua, whereas Elegy is 1.5 to 2.5 tiers. So 2.5 tiers is a huge difference. Okay? So yeah, this is showing you how good Aqua is even at R1 for Yelan. And like I said, Skyward Heart is much better than Elegy in Taser, especially when compared to VV Vape, because in VV Vape they are very close. Now, in certain scenarios, Skyward Heart is even 1 tier ahead of Elegy, like for example C1 plus R1 or any R5 permutation. Okay, let's talk about Elegy for the End. I mean, it's performing so badly here, how about the EM buffs? The thing is, the EM buff effect is not as significant as amplifying reactions for EC. So it's definitely not worth to use Elegy in Taser, especially given the huge drop in DPS. I mean, you even have cases where Elegy is 70+% behind, although this is R5 with real territory. But even if I look at R1, right, it's still 50% behind. If at C1 plus, at C0 is 43%. 43% is huge. So, and the reason why is obviously that there is a lower ER requirement in Taser, so much so that the 55% ER from Elegy substat weapon level 90 is wasted, because I only need 140. You're giving me additional 15 ER that is useless. Think of it that way. Okay. Next, let's talk about Sacrificial versus Aqua. At C0, even with reduced ER requirements in Taser, Sacrificial Bow is actually still the best performer right after R1 Aqua, which means it's performing better than Skyward Heart, it's performing better than Elegy For The End. Although at C1 plus, Skyward Heart starts to perform better, as you can see from here, but at C0, it is the second best weapon, even after including other weapons like Favonius, Stringless, Fading Twilight, Slingshot, etc. But that being said, it's no longer a close difference like in the VV where it's only 1.7% behind. It is now 19.5% behind, which is one typical tier difference, which is what you would expect of a difference between a 4-star and a 5-star weapon. So as can be seen, right, without the extreme ER requirements like in VV Vape, which you remember when I talk about every single time I talk about Sacrificial Bow with C0 Yelan in VV Vape, I always say that it is a very unique situation specific only to that permutation. Once you go out of that permutation in a Taser comp, where you no longer have extreme ER requirements, you'll see that Aqua does perform much better than Sacrificial. Okay, I hope that's very clear. Let's talk about Sacrificial versus Favonius, because till now, I still see questions asking me why is Sacrificial better than Favonius. Even though I've done specific math guide comparing this, I've already talked about it in the VV weapon comparison as well. But you know what? I'll just keep this section here. Okay. Sacrificial is 20% better than Favonius at C0 Taser. Although this gap does decrease gradually from C1 plus, with the smallest difference at C6, 6%. So the figure that I'm talking about is over here. At C0, Sacrificial bow versus Favonius, Sacrificial is basically 20% better than Favonius. But it does drop to 6%. Okay, it does drop to 6%. What this means is that the gap between Sacrificial and Favonius is widened further in Taser versus VV Vape. VV Vape was 11%, Sacrificial being 11% better than Favonius, now it's 20% better. And at C6, this figure is at C6. I'm sorry, I think this figure is missing here. At C0, this is at C6. So minus 2.5% to 6%, which means that Favonius at C6 was actually performing slightly better than Sacrificial and VV Vape. Because I've covered that in the VV weapon comparison, why that's the case. So I'm not going to further detail it here. But basically, now we see that Sacrificial is 6% better than Favonius. It's turned around again. So the high ER on Favonius is overkill in Taser. Favonius gives you 61.3 ER, which means your total ER goes to 161.3, which is obviously overkill in Taser, right? Because all you need is 140 ER at C0 and 100 at C1 plus. Now this is the reason why Favonius is performing even worse, basically, in relative comparison to Sacrificial in Taser. Next, let's talk about Stringless. Now, although Stringless is no longer the worst performer like in VV Vape, it's still doing not that great because it's still below Slingshot and always in the bottom 4. Even with its EM substat, its performance is lackluster because we cannot guarantee Yelan will always proc EC. Remember? We can't guarantee that Yelan will always proc EC. So it's still in the bottom 4. I mean, it's better than Elegy and Favonius, but that's because these two are even lower in the ranking. And I'll show the overall ranking in the conclusion later. But yeah, Stringless is not doing that great. Most importantly, against Slingshot, the one that really matters, right? Stringless is worse off. It's all pink. Okay, let's talk about Fading Twilight and Slingshot, which are basically the full F2P options. In Taser, Slingshot performs better than Fading Twilight at C0 by 8.5%, up from the 4% previously in VVV, and this difference increases further to 18% at C6. So unfortunately, this is another reason to keep Fading Twilight at weapon level 1. In fact, Slingshot is the second best bow at C1+, and third best at C0. It's only worse than Sacrificial bow by only 2 to 3% at C0. And once you go C1 plus, Slingshot actually overtakes Sacrificial bow. Interesting, right? You know, I was talking about Sacrificial bow being the best performer right after R1 Aqua, but that actually applies to C0. In fact, Slingshot is only 2 to 3% behind Sacrificial bow at C0. And once you go C1, Slingshot becomes better than Sacrificial bow. So that arguably you can say that you can even just go do Slingshot at C0, and if you happen to get a C1, then you know it's even better. Okay, so I hope this so far you've been following what I'm saying so far. Let's look at the conclusion itself. So R1 Aqua is 1 tier difference behind Skyward Hub, R1 Skyward Hub. When I compare R1 of a 5-star weapon against another 5-star weapon, it will definitely be the same refinement. Okay, so basically Aqua is 23% better at C1 plus, 27% better at C0. R5 Aqua is 30 to 33% better at C1 plus, 37% better at C0 than Skyward Hub. Wait, sorry. There's a typo here. Because I initially wanted to lump them together, but due to the bigger difference between Skyward High and Elegy, this is the reason why I've split this up. Okay, so this is what I really want to say. R1 Aqua is 1.5 to 2 tiers better than Elegy. In fact, it's 43% better at C0 and 53% at C1 plus. It's a huge difference, 1.5 to 2 tiers behind. And if you talk about R5 Aqua versus R5 Elegy, then it's even more ridiculous, where you have 61% difference at C0 and 71 to 73% at C1 plus. Let that sink in, okay? Aqua is 70 plus better than Elegy at R5 and C1 plus. That's crazy. This is the reason why I say I don't recommend Elegy at all for Taser. So yeah, like I said, I don't recommend to use Elegy in Taser because your EM buff is only for EC, not for amplifying reactions. You also need lower ER in Taser, so your ER substat is wasted on the Elegy. Some of it, not all of it. So generally speaking, low EM has a higher impact on amplifying reactions than EC, transformative reactions. Let's talk about weapon rankings because I believe this is the section that most folks will be the most interested in. So at C0, instead of being only 1.7% behind like in Vape, Sacrificial Bow is now 19.5% behind in Taser. Favonius is really bad and Slingshot actually does very well for F2P Weapon. So this is the ranking. You have Aqua, Sacrificial Bow, this is C0, Aqua, Sacrificial Bow, Slingshot, Skyward Hub, R5 Stringless, Fading Twilight, R1 Stringless, Elegy, and Favonius. Now why did I split Stringless into the R1 and R5 figures but not for Sacrificial Bow and Favonius? Because it's very straightforward, right? Because Favonius and Sacrificial Bow they don't really affect the damage figures per se. Sacrificial Bow is about higher chance to make sure you proc that additional E, which in my math I just assumed that it did proc. Favonius is just higher chance to get your energy particle. So they technically speaking between R1 and R5 for Sacrificial Bow and Favonius, at least for the purpose of my math and my assumptions, they don't make much of a difference, so that's why there's no split. Fading Twilight and Slingshot, obviously you will be using R5 because they are the pure F2P weapons, right? So that's that. Simple as that. Okay. So I just wanted to bring out for Stringless R5 and R1 though, there is quite a bit of difference. This is the reason why, and this you can see from here, right? R5 Stringless is better than Fading Twilight, but if it's R1 Stringless, it's actually worse off than Fading Twilight. But I'll talk more about Stringless later because you'll see that Slingshot is still better than Stringless. Okay, even R5 Slingshot is still better than R5 Stringless. Hell, it's even better than Skyward Hub. It's only slightly behind Sacrificial Bow. But this is C0. Once you go to C1 plus, Sacrificial Bow actually falls off to 33 to 43% behind, and Slingshot now becomes the second best at 19 to 22% behind Aqua. So Sac Bow actually falls off a lot starting from C1 plus because C1 gives you the additional E. So 3 versus 2 E's, the 3 E's are starting to be a little overkill, to be honest. But 2 E's is the sweet spot. So at C0, because you only have 1 E, Sacrificial helps bring you to that sweet spot. But when you have C1 plus, you already have 2 E's, 2 charges of your E. So that additional third E from Sac Bow is not as great. It's a diminishing return in a sense. So the ranking at C1 plus is Aqua, followed by Slingshot, and not Sacrificial Bow. It's actually Skyward Hub, and R5 Stringless. Okay, then Sacrificial Bow, R1 Stringless, and Fading Twilight. Yeah, R1 Stringless is actually better than Fading Twilight at C1 plus. And yeah, you have the two worst weapons here with the Elegy and Favonius. So generally speaking, I'll say that Slingshot is performing very well in Tasercom. Obviously at C0, Sacrificial Bow still gives you a better result. If you have R3 plus Sacrificial Bow, you can afford to give it to her, then by all means use a Sacrificial Bow. But between Sacrificial Bow and Slingshot, the difference is not big, it's only 2 to 3%. So technically speaking, yeah, okay, it's okay to give your C0 Yelan a Slingshot, a R5 Slingshot. Okay, So this is the weapon ranking, C0 and C1 plus. There's no real need for me to go talk about any other constellations, more or less the same. Because for C6, right, even though Slingshot performs better, it's still going to be behind Aqua. Okay? No way that the Slingshot effect, which only works on an NA and CA, can somehow overwhelm Aqua's effect that works on every single of Yelan's attack or damage. So Favonius is absolutely dumpstered here in Taser, since you no longer have extreme energy requirements with Raiden in Taser. So yeah, just forget about Favonius for Yelan. Yeah, just forget about it. Even VV Vape, I don't really recommend Favonius unless you don't have Sacrificial. Or unless you have R3 plus Sacrificial. Stringless is performing better than in VV Vape in Taser. Now it's performing better, but it's still losing out to a F2P option, right? I mean, R5 Stringless is still worse than a R5 Slingshot. R5 Stringless here still worse than R5 Slingshot. R5 Stringless here still worse than R5 Slingshot. So you might as well just use Slingshot and just give Stringless to other characters. Simple as that. Now for more details, please refer to the earlier math guides that I've mentioned a few times throughout this video, or the table for the figures, and now I will provide the view on the tables for the pause. Okay. So you have here your Aqua, Skyward Hub, Elegy For The End, and Sacrificial both the full figures. So do pause this if you need to. You can look at it specifically if you want to. Let's move on. Next we have Favonius and the 4 weapons before it, Stringless and the 5 weapons before it. Okay. And you have Fading Twilight and the 6 weapons before it. And Slingshot and the 7 weapons before it. So you see, like I said, Slingshot is actually performing very well, right? It's better than, it's the second best weapon throughout, except at C0 where it's slightly lower than Sacrificial. Oh, sorry, it's 4 to 5%. Why did I say 2 to 3%? Yeah, sorry, 4 to 5% lower. Let me see, do I have this somewhere here? Yeah. So it's 4 to 5%, my apologies. But it's still okay. I mean, it's still okay to use Slingshot if you really don't have a Sacrificial bow or you want to give your Sacrificial bow to another character. Okay? Okay, so we've come to the end of this weapon comparison. I'm trying my best to go to get the video as short as possible. So we have completed the VV Vape 8 weapons comparison, all of these as well, and we have the Taser 8 weapon comparison completed here in this video. Next coming up will be the Vape EC weapon comparison, and you'll notice that it's 7, not 8, because I have dropped Fading Twilight for the Vape EC. I think from the VV Vape and the Taser, it should be very clear that Fading Twilight is not even worth spending your ores on, at least for Yelan. Okay, so yeah, I'm not gonna do the math for it because the math for it is actually a huge pain. I have to take note of the rotation between the 3 different states of it, right? I have to do a lot of additional damage figures for it in order to accurately capture the shifting of the rotation every 7 seconds or plus coupled with a hit. So yeah, it's too much effort for too little benefit from that weapon. So yeah, it's not worth my math effort. So I'm gonna drop it. Okay. And after the Vape EC7 weapon comparison, we'll do a Yelan Constellation and Refinement comparison, and finally a math guide summary / cheat sheet. I might even include the farming material for Yelan, you know, that which is out there in the net, all over the internet anyway. Okay. So let me know in comments if there's any questions you have. You can help show support / appreciation via Super Thanks, which I recently unlocked, and I'll make sure to reply to every Super Thanks comment as will be highlighted as well. Please join me over at Twitch too, where I answer almost every question there. And this is the Twitch link, twitch.tv/KoinzellGI. The link is in the description as well. Okay, so if you like the content, remember the video and click subscribe for more. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.